Mm. Oh, cello. All right. It's been a few years since my last update, and my power levels have risen quite drastically since then. My last update was back in 2019, and oh man, back then I was such a noob. I was such a noob. But yeah, my last update is on my YouTube channel as well. There's a lot to cover up until this point, so shall we begin? In my last update, I mentioned that we are moving to a future where art meets technology, technology meets business, allowing business to meet art, and I decided to dub this the trigon of the future. Technology. I happen to always have a passion for technology. When I was in college studying electrical engineering, my passion for technology came with great concerns. Back then, when I was thinking about how technology is going to affect us in different ways, moving into a full blown digital age, I couldn't help but be concerned about digital manipulation, AI and automation taking over, and cyber warfare. And out of all my classes, none of my professors or peers brought up these concerns, and I was left to believe I was alone in my own mental island, thinking about how these are very serious issues at hand that are going to affect everyone. Matter of fact, these concerns have had a huge impact on the way I have navigated my life up until this point. I will not be replaced by a robot. So as part of my deprogramming, I needed to get a great stranglehold on fully understanding the technology we have at hand and where it is taking us. Art. I've always been a creative, but since spending 5 years studying electrical engineering, I had to suppress a lot of my creativity given how demanding my major was. So over these past few years, through the journey of becoming a streamer, I needed to get my creative juices flowing in full motion. And the way I see it, those who create, those who build, those who innovate, those who come forth with ideas and are able to execute them are the ones that will flourish in the future. Business. This was indeed my weakest link of the trigon because, well, I've never built a business before. But in my creative pursuit, I've recognized that technology is indeed the bridge between business and art. And these past few years, I seriously needed to hammer in a well-rounded business mindset. And thus, I've come to gain complete access to the trigon of the future. And I know not everyone's creative or into art, technology savvy, or even business minded. But I can only suggest that everyone becomes at least proficient in one or two sides of the trigon and get with people in whichever side you're deficient in. That is, if you want to protect your future. Mastering the trigon of the future has been a difficult road, but it got me to where I am now. And I can finally say I've built enough discipline on this journey to finally become unleashed. I posted my first update on July 31st, 2019. I didn't feel comfortable starting my streaming venture without doing that. There was a lot to unpack, so if you want to truly understand how it got to this point, I suggest you check out my first BrandMasterOka update because I'll be proceeding where I left off. Incredibly short recap though. I essentially no longer wanted to continue I essentially no longer wanted to continue to be scammed by the idea of college. The idea that going to college automatically means you'll be successful and happy. The idea that you need to go to college to find your purpose. The idea that colleges are the gatekeepers of knowledge when you can learn practically anything on the internet. The idea that a degree is needed to land a decent job when a lot of companies now don't necessarily require a college degree. The idea that young adults are somehow supposed to benefit from the predatory loan practices in the run. The idea that college isn't a business wanting to extract all they can from you and spit you out for profit. The idea that colleges are supposed to prepare you for the real world when, newsflash, the real world is going completely digital. So yeah, quick recap. The beginning of 2019, I decided to completely forgo pursuing a job with my degree and I started working for Uber and Lyft. And I practically spent the first half of 2019 grinding these platforms to invest in turning my room into an office space and securing all the equipment needed to start my streaming venture. After I created my first update, I was pretty much ready to dive right in and, as I said, infiltrate the Twitch waves. So yeah, in the beginning of August 2019 is when I seriously started to test out streaming. I wanted to get accustomed to streaming, being comfortable live on camera, as well as making sure all my equipment was functioning properly. And at this time, I noticed my streams were extremely laggy. I did a ton of research to resolve this issue and worked through OBS streaming application settings to see if I could stop the lags. I was using a new laptop to stream, and at the time I didn't realize the lags were due to my laptop not being powerful enough to handle all my equipment. I ended up thinking that the underlying issue was the internet speed my old roommates and I had at our apartment. So I ended up talking to my roommates about upgrading the internet. We had an internet plan that came with basic cable, but I told them I would get us a powerful router and we should go with the plan with just the internet. 1 gigabyte download speed and 35 megabits for upload speed plan would actually be cheaper than the plan we had with basic cable, and we would just stream whatever we wanted with our powerful internet, because streaming is the future. So yeah, I thought having lagging streams was unacceptable, given how much I've already invested in all my equipment at this point, especially because I wanted to repurpose my streams and use them as content for YouTube and social media. Upgrading the internet in our apartment was my next course of action. Then on August 13, 2019, the unthinkable happened. I got in an accident while driving for Uber. It was a Tuesday night around 10 p.m., which are usually slower for Uber drivers, so this was a chill night for the most part. I was up north in Chicago and I had just picked up a passenger. I literally drove down the block, stopped at a stop sign, the intersection was clear, and then as I proceeded to drive, I see a light coming from the right of me, and a car going way too fast to be able to stop at the stop sign in time for me to clear the intersection. Looking back, I wasn't able to see the car clearly, really coming that fast at all because of the cars parked on the side of the street. But as I proceeded into the intersection, I noticed that this car wasn't going to stop at the stop sign, so I slammed on my brakes to prevent the car from completely T-boning me. But alas, I couldn't prevent the car from completely hitting me, and the driver pretty much ripped through my whole front bumper. Since I was down the block where I picked my passenger up, she ended up dipping right away. I got out of my car to ask the driver, "Are you dumb, stupid, or dumb?" Turns out it was all of the above. A man comes out of the car that hit me, and I walk up to him to ask him why he didn't stop at the stop sign. And then he started to say, "I didn't stop at the stop sign." And I was thinking, are you out of your mind? You didn't stop at the stop sign. I was kind of frantic at this point and quickly looked back around to see if my passenger was in sight so she could be a witness to his lies. But she was nowhere in sight. I faced back at the driver and he continued to say, "I didn't stop at the stop sign." And then I was like, wait a minute, Buddy is slurring his words. This guy seems drunk. At this point, I was getting irritated, but I remember thinking, case closed, Buddy is drunk, I'm not talking to him anymore, and I'll wait for the cops to show up. The cops eventually show up along with an ambulance and tow trucks. The paramedics checked me out to see if I was alright, which I was. I gave the cops a recount of what happened along with all my information, and then the cops eventually realized that the man that hit me was driving under the influence, so they had to take him into custody. I talked to the tow truck guy to take my car away to the nearest repair shop, and when it was all said and done, the cops were gone, the ambulance was gone, the tow trucks were gone, and I was left sitting on the curb on the side of the street at this intersection, still digesting all that went down, and ironically requesting an Uber to take me back to my apartment. Well, the mission continues. To repair my car, I was in contact with Uber to file a claim with their insurance, which they use Allstate. When the Allstate claim rep got back to me, they notified me that the driver that hit me was clearly at fault, but his insurance expired the month before, and they would have to get in contact with my insurance to cover the damages to my car. When the Allstate claim rep got in contact with my insurance, Then they notify me that since I only have liability coverage on my insurance and not full coverage, they wouldn't be able to cover the damages to my car. And my insurance wouldn't also be able to cover the damage to my car since I was driving for Uber when I got into an accident. I must go through Uber's insurance to repair my car. The damages to my vehicle was estimated to be around $3,000. I didn't know I needed to have full coverage on my personal insurance for Uber's insurance to be able to cover me when I got into an accident using their platform. So I was pretty much screwed over and left with $3,000 bill to cover the repair of my car myself. Look at this. Look at this. Ripped right through my front bumper. Uh, At that point, I was like, there's no way I'm going to spend $3,000 to repair my car when I've already been thinking about working towards getting a bigger car since the 2011 Nissan Sentra was way too small for my 6 feet stature, and I've had back issues using it anyways, driving as much as I did. I would rather use that much capital as a down payment for a new car, if anything. In the meantime, I had my car towed back to my apartment and rented out a garage space for my landlord to stash it in until I could decide on my next course of action. Since Uber is my only source of income, I found out that Uber partnered with Hertz for drivers to rent out cars to use their platform, which was indeed convenient for the situation I was in. The following week of my accident, I had to pick up a rental vehicle through Hertz so I could continue making an income, and the car Hertz rented out to me was a 2017 Hyundai Sonata. The moment I sat in the Sonata, set the driver's seat all the way back, and started to drive in it, I finally felt the relief of tension that my back needed because the Sonata had so much legroom. It was a decent car as well, drove smooth. So since I give myself like a 3 to 5 year window to figure out this whole creative journey so I can securely transition off of Uber, I knew I needed a comfortable car to be in, and the 2017 Hyundai Sonata already won me over. Following my accident, having to use a rental car, I had to seriously reflect on all of 2019 till this point and decided that I might be trying to do too much all at once. So I decided in the beginning of 2020 I would get my own car and seriously start my streaming venture then, because renting out a car did come with some downsides. Since the rental wasn't my personal vehicle, I couldn't do Lyft at the same time as Uber. I still had to pay rental fees. Uber did pretty much pay the rental fees for you if you hit a certain number of rides per week using the platform, but I was forced to make sure I hit those number of rides per week so the rental fees weren't coming out of my pocket. And you weren't able to get the extra monetary incentives that Uber gave to drivers, which drastically reduced how much I could make using their platform. So all this combined created less flexibility that I needed to have a proper streaming schedule. Towards the end of 2019, I ended up getting the new router for our apartment, and my roommates were in agreement to upgrade our internet service. 2020 was approaching, and I was preparing to get my new car and really start kicking off my streaming venture as soon as I could early in the new year. Around the end of 2019, my sister was also telling me about how she wanted to sell her products online, primarily through Amazon. And I was like, hold up, what? Didn't you try to insinuate I was crazy for going down this streaming path when you're about to do exactly what I'm doing? That insinuation is explained in my first BrandMasterOka update. But I basically told my sister that, yeah, if you're going to sell hair products online, you'll be starting a business, which is exactly what I'm doing. And I'm just starting off with branding rather than sales. I didn't use social media like that before I started streaming, especially when I was in the state of mind that all these tech companies were taking our data, making their platforms addicting, and wondering why people weren't concerned about the increasing levels of power all these tech companies were acclimating. That's why That's why I decided to get over myself because I've realized these platforms are now instrumental business tools. So I would become a streamer and dive headfirst into the matrix to fully comprehend how all these platforms work in order to grow my brand. My sister was a bit reluctant to start her hair and beauty business, but I reassured her that she should go for it, especially because it is extremely important to have multiple sources of income in the future that I saw. 2019 was coming to a close, and as I started to notice that the amount of money Uber would pay out in order to cover my rental fees started to slowly dwindle. And because this was my first year doing Uber, I didn't realize how slow driving would be throughout the winter holidays. So basically, winter 2019-2020 was a bit rough. As 2020 approached, I kept telling myself that as soon as it's most feasible, I'll need to get my own car. In January 2020, my sister informed me that she bought Abu Fofana Power Your Launch Marketing Accelerator course to get her into the business mindset and learn the digital skills needed to be successful promoting and selling her hair products. And then she asked me if I would like to take the course with her. The course wasn't cheap and it seemed packed with a lot of insightful information related to digital marketing. So I was like, yeah, free knowledge. I'll definitely take the course. Most of my business acumen related to the mindset of starting a business and digital marketing mostly came from consuming content from Gary Vaynerchuk. And this marketing course by Abu Fofana was extremely beneficial in fully understanding a lot of the insights that came with digital marketing. This Power Your Launch course touched on copywriting, campaign development, marketing development, customer journey, conversion rates for websites, as well as paid media, and just really diving into the technical nitty gritty of the digital marketing arena through a very well put together, organized course. So throughout the beginning of 2020, my sister and I took this course together and increased our power levels. As winter 2020 was phasing into spring, I decided that I needed to get my car before St. Patrick's Day in order to capitalize on working that holiday because I made the most money on that day the year prior, and also to get ready for Chicago to pick back up heading into the spring. Boom! And it was finally time. About a week and a half before St. Patrick's Day 2020, I finally got my Honda Sonata 2017. I got this car with 30,000 miles, so it felt practically new, and I found the model that was packed with a ton of features, which was reassuring when it came to driving safely around Chicago. I definitely got full coverage insurance with my new car and decided to name it Sapphire Surfer, Safi for short. I was able to finally let go of my rental Sonata and start to drive mine, getting accustomed again to using my personal vehicle with the Uber and Lyft platforms. But oh, at this moment in time, there was something lingering that did have my concern, and that was COVID-19. Not too long before St. Patrick's Day 2020, the governor of Illinois came out and basically said everything is canceled. And then the unthinkable happens. Shortly after St. Patrick's Day, a stay-at-home order was enacted for Illinois. I just got my car. I recently, I recently, I just got my car. I was ready to start making more money using my own vehicle and gear up to seriously start streaming again. And this seemed like it was going to put a more dents in my plan. There was a lot of uncertainty related to COVID-19 at this time, but when the stay at home order was first put in place, nobody was going anywhere. It was eerie driving around Chicago, especially downtown, and barely seeing any people or cars on the road. I couldn't help but think, what is happening here? There's no way I'm going to make an income with Uber if this stay at home order was prolonged. I remember driving around the first day after the order was enacted, and I maybe picked up 2 or 3 people within hours. I was wasting gas at that point. But the mission continues. I ended up having to start doing Uber Eats and began applying to all the food delivery services. I did Grubhub, DoorDash, Postmates, Caviar. I was running like 5, 6 apps at the time. Even through a pandemic, my bills weren't going to pay itself. I ended up having to call my car loan issuer. I let them know, yo, have you heard about this Corona thing? I might not be able to make my monthly payments until I don't know. But the lady I talked to told me that people are going through similar circumstance, and they were issuing a 4 month deferment on loans with no late fees. So I was like, cool, I got a little bit of time to figure out something and make sense of everything that was going on in the world. Having to use the food delivery services was a mess during this time. Restaurants were unprepared for the large influx of online orders, with everyone stuck at home and ordering at the same time, causing way too long wait times to pick up people's food to deliver. All the food delivery services held it down, but working like that was not what I signed up for, and was going to be a huge delay in being able to properly start streaming. I still had streaming in my mind for sure, and I was thinking, if I had to work around this mess in the state of the world, in the state the world was currently in, then so be it. And it was crazy to think, if I was still using a rental car and didn't get my own personal car at the time, I wouldn't be able to use all these food delivery platforms. Beginning of April 2020, I started to take the Zero to Legend YouTube course by the YouTube creator That Denver Guy. That Denver Guy was one of the Fortnite creators that I would watch, and as he grew his channel immensely through the beginning years of Fortnite, he eventually was able to quit his teaching job and focus on content creation full time. Since my streaming journey wasn't just about Twitch, but about content creation across various platforms, I thought it would be valuable to take the course, and it was. The course was a great breakdown of the mentality needed as a creator, as well as a ton of resources and insight on a lot of the ins and out that comes with creating content for YouTube. I continued to work through the food delivery services, but as spring 2020 was ending and the summer was approaching, I noticed that Uber and Lyft and was picking back up as a lot of the initial hysteria related to COVID-19 started to quell and people started to move about more. So as summer approached, I ended up not having to do the food delivery services anymore, which was a huge relief. And at this point, I remember thinking that I need to not double, not triple, not quadruple, not double, not triple, but quadruple how serious I need to be with this path I have chosen. I need to start my streaming venture as soon as I could so I could get off this Uber platform by setting up my life, having multiple sources of income doing so. My next course of action was to work Uber and Lyft until I felt stable enough to finally start streaming and posting content on a schedule I set for myself. And finally, August 2020, was when that came to fruition. Because I felt like I needed to make up for lost time, I started streaming almost every day from Monday to Friday for 3 to 6 hours a day. I decided to use the video editing software Wondershare for more to edit my streams and then post my gaming clips for Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. Wondershare for more was a great editing software to use. I eventually realized all this was extremely time consuming, so I had to come up with ways to make the whole process easier. I initially had to set all my clips to my phone and upload them to each social media platform individually, but I discovered Loomly, which is a social media scheduling management site. I also discovered later that I could edit my clips through the Twitch website instead of downloading my whole stream and using Wondershare to edit them. But at the time, it was needed that I use Wondershare editing application, since my only prior video editing experience was the Windows Movie Maker. And unfortunately, even though my internet was already upgraded, I still had a bit of laggy streams, which finally led me to believe that my laptop was the main culprit behind my lags. But I streamed through the lags, and I also edited my clips around them. Through the summer of 2020 and into the fall, I was getting into the motion of streaming, editing, posting content, and engaging with those who commented on my clips. Then in the fall of 2020, to see how far I've come with video editing and to push my creative forward a bit, I decided to do a mini project with my golden dragon blade katana. And thus, BrandMasterOka was officially born. Harnessing the power of the golden dragon blade katana came with great difficulty, but through meditation, channeling my chi, and absorbing the powers of the universe, I was able to unleash its true potential. All right. My plan was always to eventually start making content outside of gaming. So this was a great feat to see what I was capable of. My friend helped me shoot. I directed him on exactly how I wanted the shots. I edited the footage and added the special effects and everything else. And with a 60-second time frame, I limited myself. It turned out how I wanted it to. The only thing was editing all the footage and adding the special effects was a huge toll for my laptop and made the process really slow and painful. In addition to finally stop having laggy streams, at this point, if I were to do more advanced editing work, I felt like I might need to build a powerful PC. Towards the end of 2020, I found out that you can stream on multiple platforms at the same time. So I started doing that using Restream. I started to stream on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter simultaneously, which was great in broadening my audience and across multiple platforms. And I eventually realized streaming every day can burn you out quickly, especially since I'm not getting paid to stream. So I decided to cut back to a few nights a week. Heading to 2021, the world was still in a bit of chaos because of COVID-19. It was difficult to know if all the information we were getting was accurate, and there was a lot of fear-mongering from across the corporate media. And within the US, amid all of this, the 2020 elections was going on, which put the US even more in a bit of a frenzy. Then in January 2021, Donald J. Trump, the sitting president of the United States of America, was banned from Twitter, Facebook, and various other social media platforms. Whoa. I've never really been into politics. I've never voted in my life. I've never considered myself to be a Democrat or a Republican, but over the latter half of the past decade, it was as if politics has been shoved down everyone's throats. I couldn't believe this though. I remember thinking that if you're an American and you do not see how this is such an overreaching implication that social media has, then what is happening to this country? Well, it seems that tech companies has more power than governments now, and nothing will be done about it because they are private companies. And in the following months of 2021, I was to find out that various political commentators are being censored and banned, doctors, various creatives from different fields. The beginning of 2020 was the height of my paranoia. My mission has been clear. I cannot truly be creatively free until I'm financially free. And I've been paving my way towards financial freedom by setting up my business with these platforms. But if these social media companies can ban and censor someone sitting in the highest office in the land, then who am I? And in recent times, with Elon Musk taking over Twitter and releasing the Twitter files, it turns out there's a lot of tomfoolery going on between the government and various social media companies. And even though I believe Elon Musk taking over Twitter was a great move, especially when it comes to securing some semblance of freedom of speech, but him bringing back certain individuals to Twitter that were previously banned and choosing not to bring back other individuals for more arbitrary reasons and terms of service that can be changed on a whim, and then creators can be retroactively punished by them. I guess it turns out we just have to bow down to whichever technocrat that has the reins to all the social media companies. I couldn't help but take these I couldn't help but take this social media censorship, this digital manipulation extremely seriously when I know this issue, if not resolved, will be completely exacerbated when we're all eventually operating in VR. I'm building my brand off of these platforms, and if they can just arbitrarily ban and censor you, then that really didn't sit well for me. I've been trying to build my brand as a creative as well as deprogram myself from all the lies I've been led to believe for most of my life in order to make sure my family's protected before I can comfortably delve off into the different creative worlds I want to build. So when this occurs, I couldn't help but conclude that I no longer could trust any of these social media platforms as a viable way to protect myself and my family in the wake of this digital revolution that we're in. Throughout the beginning of 2021, I continued to have an unsettling feeling of the prospects of using these social media platforms long term. And then two podcasts in particular subdued my paranoia and accelerated my deprogramming. Those podcasts are the Timcast IRL podcast that focuses on news, political, and cultural commentary, and the Fresh and Fit podcast, the number one male self improvement podcast in the world that focuses on money, fitness, and dating in this digital age. Digital manipulation, AI and automation taking over, and cyber warfare. Those were my concerns about technology we are facing in this digital revolution. And politics aside, Timcast has been in the content creation game for well over a decade and has a very well range and understanding of technology and discusses these topics every so often. And I finally felt like there was a news platform that didn't lie directly to my face like a lot of the corporate media does. Fresh and Fit. Man, man, do I wish this platform existed when I was in college. This platform gives men the knowledge to become the best version of themselves by discussing a wide range of topics they're familiar with and bringing on high-profile guests to discuss topics they're deficient in. I've learned so much from Fresh and Fit across various realms that will forever help me with my mental state, physique, and financial aptitude. And then what really got me going in the beginning of 2021 was when in March I came across a video from the Joe Budden podcast where he brought on J.N. Silva to discuss NFTs and cryptocurrencies. I kept hearing about NFTs weeks prior to watching this segment, but I didn't look too much into it. And when J.N. Silva came on this podcast and explained it so well, I became activated. When I first started hearing about blockchain technology a couple years prior to this point, I told myself that as soon as I found out how this technology could be used as a creative, I would be on it immediately. This video dropped at the beginning of the week, and as I stood in what NFTs could mean for empowering creatives, I got more excited as the week went on. And then on the Saturday of that same week, I got up early to go grocery shopping, and with NFTs still on my mind, I started to craft out NFT swagging. I pretty much wrote the song that day, eventually found the beat for it, and started to plot out my next creative moves, integrating NFTs into my business. I've kept old drawings of robots I drew going all the way back to elementary school. And as I look back at them every once in a while, I always thought to myself that maybe I could auction them off in the future. But with NFTs, I can scan them all and then post them to the NFT marketplace for those who want to purchase them and hold on to a piece of my childhood as well as support my creative journey. So throughout March, I did additional research regarding how to properly put up NFTs and getting a better understanding of the Ethereum and blockchain technology. I plan out to record NFT swagging, create a music video for it, drop my NFTs with a song, also drop merch alongside all of this, and finally start to market my brand in a big way. And in between putting all this together, I plan to build my first PC so I have a powerful computer for editing as well as streaming. Beginning of April 2021, I recorded NFT swaggin'. I also started to purchase all the parts for my PC. In May 2021, I worked on getting the cover art for the song done, as well as the BrandMasterOka art for my merch, and I acquired all my parts for my PC, and I was able to put it all together. Bam! First time building a PC. Felt like I shouldn't have done this a lot sooner. In the beginning of June 2021, I went into serious planning into putting my music video together and getting everyone involved up to speed in what I had in mind for it. And then towards the end of June, I shot the music video. I got a limo for the shoot and we shot some of it in downtown Chicago. My friend helped me with the videography, I directed it, my roommates along with a few of my friends got involved, and I even got our neighbors that were throwing a party in the apartment next to us to join us for the last sequence of the shoot. So I wrote NFT swaggin', found the beat for it, went to the studio to record it, spent a couple of months preparing and planning out a music video for it. Summer 2021 came around, I shot the music video for it. After that, with my newly built PC, I edited the footage for the music video myself. I put the music video out on YouTube in the beginning of July and set the song out to all the streaming platforms. And I was able to do all this with the capital gain from Uber driving. I was taken aback by accomplishing all of this because I've been actively suppressing myself from creating music in any capacity until I figure out how I would become unleashed.
I'm NFT swaggin', I I'm NFT swaggin', I'm NFT swaggin', I'm NFT swaggin'. Crypto in my wallet, and you know you can't stop it. I'm NFT swaggin', 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 I'm NFT swaggin'. Crypto in my wallet, and you know you can't stop it. I'm NFT swaggin', I'm NFT swaggin'. Look at my swag. Yeah. Taking my drip.
Hey there, listen up. NFT swag is building up. I'm so NFT high. I'm lifting off.
This my time to shine, so it looks like it.
Okay. I stated in my first BrandMasterOka update that I had the same empty feeling graduating from high school that I did when graduating from college, and I didn't completely comprehend why until I put together my first music video, my actual graduation.
If you ain't NFT swagging, then what is you doing? It's Oka, you already know.
Everything I've done leading to this point was for this to simply push my creative forward. I also scanned all my robot drawings to put on the OpenSea marketplace at Okachobi. I also have additional NFTs outside of my robot drawings, but yeah, I have my drawings of robots that I've held on to going all the way back to elementary school and throughout middle school. These are my early drawings that I drew like in 5th grade. I used to write the attacks for my robots. This one in the middle here, I drew in college. This was the last one that I ever drew. And most of them are ones that I drew throughout middle school. Man, you have UK Bot, Torpedo, King Bot, Scissors, Anaconda, NATO, Dragonfly, Foxbot, Hypno. Man. Like Metrocopter, Metric Tank, Metric Plane, combine them all to Metric Mobile. And then I did a major project in 8th grade where I would combine 5 robots. So you have Armor Car, iFly, Shark Marine, Rocket Dog, Lasertron, and I combine them all to Mechatron. And at this time, I had my merch store, it's okashop.com, up and running. So you can get your boost gear, got Okachobi t-shirt, Okachobi hoodie, NFT swagging t-shirt, Game Over t-shirt, and then staples, Golden Dragon Blade Katana, Power Levels Rising, Meditation. All right. I have to rewind a bit now because in June 2021, A couple of weeks prior to finalizing the plans and shooting the music video for NFT Swagging, I watched the Fresh and Fair podcast episode where they introduced Charlie, aka Cultivate Crypto, and Miguel, aka Dollar Cost Crypto, and the Crypto Mindset Q3 2021 course they were promoting at the time. During this podcast, they talked about the different insights that they had regarding the crypto space and the precautions needed if one were to enter it. Since most of the research at this moment in time I've done regarding crypto was through understanding NFTs because I was putting out my own, I thought to myself, if I'm going to put out NFTs and make a song about NFTs and crypto, I should probably know as much about crypto as possible. I found these gentlemen to be extremely knowledgeable when it came to the understanding of crypto, so I looked into getting their course. But when I saw the course cost $7.99, I was a bit reluctant to purchase it because I was in the motions of investing a considerable amount of capital to put my NFT swagging music video together. But the course was closing in less than 24 hours, so if I were to purchase it, I had to decide then and there. I understood that crypto and blockchain technology was the future, therefore comprehending as much of the space as possible would be paramount. So I went ahead and purchased the course, and little did I know that would be one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. The webinars for the Crypto Mindset Q3 2021 course started a bit after the middle of June, and I couldn't really focus on watching the webinars because it started during the time I was mentally preparing myself to finalize the plans and shoot my first music video. But when I shot the footage for my NFT swagging music video towards the end of June, I was eager to go back and catch up on all the webinars I had missed. As I started to focus on watching the webinars and taking in the information, I started to realize that the world of crypto is indeed greater than just NFTs. The Crypto Mindset course gave me a better understanding of this new era of DeFi, decentralized finance, and how to navigate investing in crypto in the safest way. But oh, lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, the Crypto Mindset course would introduce me to the light at the end of the tunnel I've been searching for, which is Hex. None of this is financial advice, so you must do your own research. But one of the tokens that Charlie and Miguel in the Crypto Mindset Q3 2021 course suggested to invest in was Hex, the first blockchain certificate of deposit. Hex was the cheapest token they suggested. I believe it was hovering around 9 cents at the time. I scrubbed the hex.com site to find out more about this token, and in the beginning of July, I made my first investment in Hex and thus became a Hexican. Then everything from this point seemed to happen pretty fast because my original plan after dropping my NFT swagging music video on YouTube was to go into high gear and invest in marketing my NFTs, my merch, and just promoting myself as a brand. But all that quickly changed when nearly a week later in July 2021, after dropping my NFT swagging music video on YouTube, the Pulse Chain sacrifice would begin. I remember seeing rumbles online the night prior to the Pulse Chain sacrifice launch. I recall Charlie and Miguel talking about this during a webinar in the Crypto Mindset course, but I didn't completely understand what it was at the time. But from them discussing it during the course and from the rumbles I was seeing online, I knew this was a huge event occurring. So the night before the Pulse Chain sacrifice phase began, I was online going through YouTube, different Reddit threads, and I was discovering that Pulse Chain is an energy efficient, cheaper, faster, fee-burning Ethereum fork, and every single token on the Ethereum network will be copied over to Pulse Chain, causing this to be the biggest crypto airdrop in history. I eventually was led into the Pulse Chain Telegram chat, where along with many other enthusiastic individuals, went to seek information to comprehend everything that was going on. Luckily, I did a ton of research before entering the chat, so I had a firm grasp on what the pulse chain sacrifice phase entailed. But it was still reassuring that there were many people in the pulse chain Telegram chat willing to answer a couple of questions and clarifications I had regarding the sacrifice phase. And not too long being immersed in the Telegram chat, Richard Hart himself went live on YouTube to explain why pulse chain was being made, how the pulse chain sacrifice phase worked, and also touched on other concepts related to the general DeFi crypto space. And by the end of the stream, I was left astonished of how much knowledge Richard Hart was spitting. And it was just so refreshing to find out that this sacrifice phase for Pulse Chain was a political statement to prove how strong we believe that blockchains are speech, and speech is a protected human right, especially being extremely alarmed with all the censorship that was going on at this time. And thus the next day, the Pulse Chain sacrifice phase went live, and a few days after that, without expectation of profit from the work of others, of course, I made my sacrifice. And I made sure that my sister, my brother, my mom, and my dad all made sacrifices from their own individual wallets, and we may all receive free tokens for doing so. I even got a few friends that didn't ignore me involved with the sacrifice phase. But up until this point, it was extremely difficult to not constantly believe I was self-sabotaging myself by forgoing my electrical engineering degree to be an Uber driver and essentially play video games. But in actuality, my goals were to set up my creative infrastructure, gain a greater business acumen, stay up to date with all the emerging technologies, and continue to deprogram myself from all the lies being purported to me for far too long, all to make sure my family is protected in the future. Again, my mission has been simple. I cannot truly be creatively free until I'm financially free, but with all the censorship going on, I could no longer trust all these centralized platforms I would be using to build my brand in the long term. But what a better way to be financially free than to be your own bank in the most decentralized way with the fastest performing asset class. Every step I took leading up to discovering Hex and then the Pulse Chain sacrifice phase suddenly felt like it wasn't in vain. After making my sacrifice for Pulse Chain, and as the sacrifice phase for Pulse Chain ended, I continued to watch the Richard Hart live streams as well as consume content from many other Hex Pulse Chain content creators on YouTube. And through doing so, I began to greater understand the importance of the Pulse Chain network, the complexities of Hex, and the broader centralized and decentralized finance world. And then in September 2021, along being deep within absorbing so much knowledge from the Hex Pulse Chain community, I was able to be a part of witnessing the phenomenon of Hex doing its 10,000x in under 2.5 years, as it was designed to do so. And after really taking some time to understand the inner workings of Hex and its staking mechanism regarding its T-shares, in September 2021, I finally made my first stakes with Hex. I remember when I was in college studying electrical engineering and I was learning to code for the first time, I wondered if coding was an art form in itself. And then funny enough, I thought to myself, of course it is, because video games are an art form that are made with code. So upon understanding that Hex is a smart contract that has been designed to be incredibly intricate, I couldn't help but consider Hex to be an innovational masterpiece, considering the checks and balances that was built into the staking mechanism and the overall game theory of the token. By October 2021, everything was seemingly going fine. Around this time, Pulse Chain Testnet V1 launched, and it was exciting to see there was progress with the development of the network. And at the time, I created a Telegram group and added all the people I got involved with the pulse chain sacrifice so I could deliver out messages related to any important updates to everyone all at once. In the Telegram chat, I even began posting definitions, videos, and articles related to the general crypto blockchain space to educate everyone in the chat about crypto while we wait for the pulse chain to launch. But most importantly, to force me to further educate myself while doing so. My plan from here was to basically work as much as possible as I could Uber driving and continue to dollar cost average into Hex. And then, not again, and not my baby. Around the middle of October 2021, I got into another accident while Uber driving. This was around 10 p.m. and I was up north in Chicago en route driving my passenger to her destination. Then as I approached the intersection of the accident, there was a big black van that was just stopped in the middle of the intersection with no turn signals on or hazard lights, just blocking the whole lane. I didn't know what this car was doing since the intersection was clear and they were just stopped. So I proceeded to drive around them using the left turning lane. And as I was in the middle of the intersection, through my right rearview mirror, I saw this van make a sharp left turn out of nowhere. I attempted to swerve out of the way, but it happened way too fast for me to dodge it, and they ended up hitting my back passenger door. I stopped my car at the corner of the intersection and made sure my passenger was all right. Since then, and made sure my passenger was all right since the van hit the side she was sitting. I rolled my window down, and as the woman in the van approached me, she started yelling at me as if it was my fault, which definitely got me a bit agitated. She lastly yelled that she'll need to see my insurance, and I said, of course. The woman started to walk back to her van, assumingly to get her insurance so we could exchange information. I got out of my car to check the damages to my vehicle and reassure my passenger was all right, and let her know that she'll have to find another ride until I deal with this incident. And I was just distraught to see what they did to my baby. Look at what they did, look at what they did. Try to dodge it, couldn't. Bumped right into me. As I was looking at the damages to my vehicle, a man approached us from the van to see if my passenger and I was okay, and he was apologizing for the situation. Then, as I was prepared to go back into my car to retrieve my insurance card, I look up and the woman or the van was nowhere to be seen. She drove off, leaving the man she was with behind. I was stunned that she really just hit and ran. My mind was boggled, and soon I saw the man she left behind retrieve a phone call and scurry away. First thought was to follow the man to hunt that lady down, but I ultimately decided not to avoid putting myself in any dangerous predicament doing so. My car was still in drivable shape, so I stood at that intersection thinking that I would have to deal with the situation later, as I still had a few more rides that I wanted to finish up for the extra monetary bonus Uber would dish out. Funny enough, the passenger that I was in my car as I got hit came walking back to the intersection after she already left and told me that the train or bus wasn't working at the time and asked if I was able to drop her off at a destination. Even though the ride was already canceled and I wouldn't be paid for it, I didn't want to leave her hanging, so I agreed to drop her off. We weren't too far from my destination, and I still had the route pulled up on Google Maps. I dropped her off, and as I was ready to turn the Uber app back on to go ahead and finish up my last few rides. But when I turned the Uber app back on, I got a notice that my account was put on hold. They were aware that I got into an accident and I needed to show picture proof that my car was okay before I would be reinstated to use the app again. Being just worn down from being out driving like 8 to 9 hours at this point, I decided to go home and fill out the application through the Uber app about the incident and send them my pictures. I was thinking, since my car was still in drivable shape, that once I did so, Uber would take my account off hold, but it was the exact opposite. I got a notice that my account wouldn't be taken off hold until I repaired the damages to my car and provided picture proof of doing so. Man, this night seems like I was just getting one blow right after the other. The following day, I got a police report done for the incident. I thought to myself, okay, Uber's insurance would cover this, and I had to only put down $1,000 deductible for the repairs. I was already planning on going to Texas for a week the following month to visit my sister during the Thanksgiving period and celebrate her getting her first house. Therefore, I can plan the repair for my car when I'm away in Texas, not being able to work anyways. But as I was in contact with Allstate, Uber's insurance, they were informing me that in March 2020, the year prior, Uber changed the $1,000 deductible to $2,000 deductible. So in order for them to cover the remaining costs of the repair of my car, I had to put down $2,000 of my own money. This was the first time I was hearing about this change and had to yet take another blow from this situation. I had $1,000 deductible in mind and felt like that was reasonable. But $2,000 for putting my life on the line using their platform felt absurd. This time I had full coverage on my insurance, so when This time I had full coverage on my insurance, so when I contacted my insurance about covering the damages to my car, they informed me yet again that I must go through Uber's insurance since I was going on their platform at the time of the incident. And the damages to my car came out to be just over $2,000, so I was basically screwed over yet again and had to cover the damages to my car out of my own pocket. This was a rough situation, but I still needed to work. So since my car was still in drivable shape, I had to use the Lyft app as a source of income until I was ready to cough up the $2,000 needed for the repairs. Uber is the primary app I use because I make more money using their platform. So while driving for Lyft, I had to make up the money lost by driving more hours. So through the end of October 2021 and into November before going to Texas, I eventually gained enough capital to repair the damage to my car and hold me over while I wasn't able to work. When I came back from Texas at the end of November from the Thanksgiving break, it took like a week and a half longer than expected, but I finally got my car back from the body shop with the damages from the accident fixed. I was then able to send the pictures to Uber and they took my account off of hold. As I started to use the Uber app again in December 2021, I was just irritated that all this occurred as it was heading towards the wintertime and the slowest part of the year for Uber driving. And also very soon after getting my car back, one quiet night around 7 or 8, I was driving and planned on finishing the night up with a few more rides. I was en route to pick up a passenger when I stopped at an all-way intersection with stop signs at each junction. And then a car stopped at the perpendicular street to the left of me soon after I did. I don't know why, but I did have a bad feeling at this intersection, but my nerves were probably just so rocking since I have to be even more cautious when driving so I don't get into any more accidents that are not my fault, I guess. I have the right of way since I stopped first and needed to make a left turn at this intersection. I trust nobody on these Chicago streets anymore, so I proceeded to slowly make my left turn, watching the car perpendicular to the left of me, making sure they weren't trying to move as I was doing so. As I got halfway through the intersection, still slowly making my left turn, the car that was stopped perpendicular to the left of me suddenly honked its horn, and I just reacted and slammed on my brakes. Then a big van sped through the stop sign going in the direction I was turning into and came what it seems like inches away from completely ramming into my car. I stopped at the intersection for a few moments, stunned, looked at the man in the car that honked his horn, thinking that if he didn't do that, I would have proceeded, and that van, not slowing down a bit for their stop sign, would have hit me. Right after I just got my car back from being fixed with my own capital. I was thinking I would have been wrecked literally and figuratively if that were to happen. After a few moments, I just continued through the intersection, gracious that the man warned me of the incoming van with his horn, picked up my passenger, and decided to call it for the night after that. When I got back from my apartment, I laid on my bed, still a bit shaken up from thinking that I do appreciate the flexibilities and lucrativeness of being an Uber driver, but I am now risking my life for Uber. I must sustainably get off this Uber platform as soon as possible. But after all this, the mission still continues. Then, then at the end of the second. Then, at the end of December 2021, Richard Hart announced the Pulse X sacrifice. Pulse X being a Uniswap fork and the premier decentralized exchange for Pulse Chain. And again, it was refreshing to note that this sacrifice phase was a political statement to prove how strong we believe in the right of human assembly, especially given all the unconstitutional lockdowns we endured in the US. And thus, in the beginning of January 2022, again, without expectation of profit from the work of others, I made my sacrifice. And I again made sure that my sister, my brother, my mom, and my dad all made sacrifices from their own individual wallets. And we all may receive free PulseX tokens for doing so. And for the PulseX sacrifice, I tried to reach out to some friends that I wasn't able to convince to participate in the Pulse Chain sacrifice, but alas, I was ignored and left unread once again. January to May of 2022 basically consisted of me continuing to grind out Uber driving while I stayed up to date with all the happenings related to the launch of Pulse Chain and further my knowledge base related to the general crypto DeFi space. I also participated in peripheral projects related to the Pulse Chain ecosystem. And then in May of 2022, on Mother's Day, I gave birth. I got up early that day to do a bit of grocery shopping. The plan for this Mother's Day was to take my mom out to eat early in the afternoon after she was done getting a massage. So from Chicago, I planned on driving out to the suburbs after I was done shopping. But apparently my brother happened to schedule a massage for my mom at a massage parlor of the same name. from the one my mom intended to go to, so her massage had to be rescheduled for later in that afternoon at the correct parlor, thus pushing back the time we were planning on going out to eat. When I got back to my apartment from grocery shopping, I now had a few hours of downtime that I didn't plan for. I was planning on working that day, and my first thought was to go Uber driving for a few hours until then, but ultimately chose to stay in and relax. I hopped on my computer and was probably going to watch some anime to pass the time, but ever since I came up with NFT swagging, I started to tease myself and got back into the habit of listening to beats every now and then. And there's been a couple of beats that I really liked. I will listen to just for fun. I started listening to one of them, and my creative juices started flowing because I began to craft out Pulse, the Pulse Chain anthem. When I started to craft it out, I checked the time and I saw that I had about 3 hours until I had to leave to take my mom out to eat. So I pushed myself to finish writing the song in that time, and I did, thus giving birth to a new song. Having been actively suppressing myself from creating music in any capacity until I figure out how to properly lay out the foundation for building my brand as a creative, I looked at the piece of paper I wrote Pulse the Pulsion Anthem on, reinvigorated, knowing that Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX will be the pillars that will boost me towards completing my mission. And again, my mission has been clear. I cannot truly be creatively free until I'm financially free. After that Mother's Day, when I saw my roommates at the time, I kept telling them I became a mother on Mother's Day because I gave birth to a new song. Later that month, in May 2022, I went to the studio to record Pulse the Pulsion Anthem and use this as another opportunity to work on becoming a better recording artist. I've been thrilled for the launch of Pulse Chain, of course, but have been even more enthralled with the work, time, and effort many individuals of the Hex Pulsion community has been putting into building projects for and around Pulse Chain. Upon constructing Pulse the Pulsion Anthem, I wanted to participate in that by doing what I do best, which is to create. And yes, I have the song, but that doesn't solely do it justice because I plan on making an animation video that actually introduces something I've been wanting to for my brand, as well as potentially gain massive awareness for Pulse Chain. And I definitely intend to reaching out to prominent Hex Pulse Chain content creators to leak my song before its release. At this current moment in time, the Pulse Chain Testnet v3 is on the verge of launching and thus bringing us a step closer to the official launch. And I just want to thank Richard Hart along with the entire Hex Pulse Chain community for firstly, just a sheer massive amount of education I've gotten being engaged with a lot of the content distributed by this community and also helping me crack the code to the matrix, which is true decentralization. Not just decentralization of finance, but of education, news, entertainment, governance, communication, all leading towards self-sovereignty, self-custody, self-responsibility, self-reliability, self-sufficiency, self-awareness, self-control, self-confidence, self-care, self-respect, and higher self-esteem. Again, you all have my gratitude, and I'm now one huge leap towards becoming unleashed. Gah! Then in June 2022, one night around midnight after I was done streaming, I decided to listen to some beats again. And there was one beat in particular I wanted to use because it aligns so perfectly with my brand as a gamer. That beat was actually called Game Over. I must have had a good night gaming, must have caught a couple of dubs. Because when I started to listen to the Game Over beat, I started to craft out my song Game Over. I wanted to keep the momentum I had going, so I didn't go to bed until I finished writing the song. And yeah, a few hours later, Game Over was done. I originally wanted to use NFT swagging to promote my NFTs, my merch, and myself as a brand, but I took a huge detour because of Pulse Chain and to take time understanding the crypto DeFi space. But upon creating Game Over, I thought to myself, now would be the time to get back into building out my creative infrastructure. And since this song aligns so well with my brand as a gaming creator, I would use the song to restart promoting myself. I was planning to record Game Over in July 2022, but a couple of occurrences delayed that. My mom called to inform that her mom had passed away and we would need to go to Nigeria for the funeral. And my old roommates and I have been dealing with issues with our new landlord since he took over in 2020, and we were all determined to move out by our lease end in August. I already scheduled to record Game Over at that time, but had to cancel to figure out my living situation since my old roommates and I were finding new living arrangements separate from each other. Since creating the Pulse Chain anthem, and then Game Over, I got lost in the creative mode a bit and had to snap back into reality. Then one day, mid-July 2022, I started looking for studios or one-bedrooms around Chicago. I found a studio in the Pilsen area that seemed to be a great fit for just the amount of space I needed, and I saw they were promoting 2 months free rent. So I called up the number for this space and talked to the realtor, and she was able to schedule a tour the next day. The next day during the tour, she showed me around the building and brought me to the studio I saw online. As soon as we walked into the studio, the one I'm currently in, I just visually knew that this was just enough space. The realtor told me all the information I needed to sign the lease for this space, and I made sure to confirm that the 2 months free rent was legit, because that would be a lifesaver. This almost seemed too good to be true, but I immediately filled out the application and sent all my information through, and not too long afterwards, I signed the lease. I lived in the same apartment for 5 years after graduating college in 2017, so it felt a bit surreal moving to a new space. But yeah, in August 2022, I finally moved into my new studio apartment. Living with roommates for the previous 5 years was cool, and it saved a lot of money since my rent is now more than double what it used to be, but it felt about time to finally be able to be in my own sanctuary. Since I lived in my old apartment for 5 years, there were a bunch of little things my old roommates and I shared, so I spent the most of August and September getting everything I needed for my apartment to be in full working order. And because my rent became more than double, I had to get used to a stricter working schedule I set for myself. During this time, I also had to be prepared to go to Nigeria in the beginning of November for my grandmother's funeral. A lot seemed to be happening all at once going into the fall, but my goal at this point was to record Game Over before traveling to Nigeria. When October 2022 came around, I finally felt ready to focus on recording Game Over, and towards the end of October, I was able to do just that. The song was now done, and I had the main component for the revitalization of promoting my brand. There was still much I needed to do, but I waited to focus on all that until I got back from Nigeria. The beginning of November 2022 came, and we flew over to Nigeria. I got to witness my first Nigerian funeral for my grandmother. I haven't been back in like 5 years, so I gotta see like all my aunts and cousins. was the street that my grandmother's house was on. We were dancing back and forth with the coffin. With the drummers playing, everybody out dancing. Yeah, it had been 5 years since being back in Nigeria, so it was funny to see how much all my little cousins have grown up. Yeah, some of my little cousins here, and this is the house of my grandmother. And while in Nigeria, it dawned on me that this was actually the first time my whole family were in Nigeria at the same time since we came to the US about 25 years ago. I spent about a week in Nigeria in the beginning of November 2022, and when I got back to Chicago, it was time to get back to work. I planned on making an arcade-esque animation video for Game Over, so I needed to find the right person for the animation and work on the script for it. And it was around this time in November when the Fresh and Fit podcast announced that they were having a free meet and greet in Miami for their 1 million YouTube celebration in January of 2023. Along with meeting the Fresh and Fit crew, I thought this would be a great opportunity to scope out Miami since over the past couple of years, I've been highly considering moving my headquarters of operations over there, as well as creating a bit of marketing content for my new song while in Miami. And then say it ain't so. At the end of November 2022, I got into another accident that wasn't my fault. I was Uber driving downtown on the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend en route to drop off my passenger. And it was around 11 a.m. when a pickup truck decided to take an absurd left turn and hit me. I was driving on Clark Street, which is a one-way, and I was on at the far left lane. And this pickup truck decided to take a sharp left turn at the intersection from the middle lane while I was passing through, hitting my car at the back passenger side. I tried to avoid the truck when I saw them turning, but couldn't evade the hit. I stopped at the intersection in utter disbelief, assured my passenger was alright, and got out of the car to exchange information with the driver. A couple comes out of the car, and from their license plate, it turns out they were from Indiana, which made a bit sense why they would make such a stupid turn on a one-way. I exchanged information with the man that was driving the truck, and the couple knew they were at fault and assured me I would be taken care of. I dropped off my passenger and went to go fill out a police report of the incident. It was minimal damage to my car, but I was still worried that this ordeal might put a massive dent in my plans for dropping Game Over in time for January 2023. Look at what they did, look at what they did! But could have been worse. Could have been worse. All right. When the insurance contacted me with the following week, the driver indeed reported that they were at fault, and I just needed to give my testimony of the incident. I ended up not being screwed over this time and got rewarded a decent chunk of change for this incident. This was great because instead of fixing my car, I could use the capital to invest in putting everything together for the release of Game Over by the time I needed to go to Miami for the Fresh and Fit meet and greet. My plan was to write the script for Game Over and get the animation done for the music video, and to buy a huge block speaker with a wireless mic to perform my song in Miami while I give out merch, and even buy business cards so I can give out to really start promoting my brand. And my friend already agreed to join me on this trip to help record for the content. When December 2022 came around, I got the animation script for Game Over done, and by mid-December, I had my animator working on it. I ordered my tickets for Miami, my merch, my business cards, my speaker with the wireless mic. I even ordered a little stand for my QR code you can scan to go directly to my links page. It's oka.com/links. Through the end of December 2022 and the beginning of the new year, I was focused on making sure everything else was in order to completely be prepared to start promoting my NFTs and my merch. Around mid-January 2023, on Thursday, my friend and I began our journey to Miami. Funny enough, I literally had my animation music video done right before getting on the flight out over there, and was able to drop it the next day we arrived.
Tryna come on me now, that's game over. Tryna scope me now, that's game over. Tryna swerve on me now, that's game over.
Over for you, oh.
Tryna come on me now, that's game over. Tryna scope me now, that's game over. Tryna swerve on me now, that's game over. Over for you, oh.
Don't make me make you reach your final destination. It's Oka on the beat, like a breath of fresh air ventilation.
This sensation got me reaching final form. That'll be fatality for you, oh. Got my crosshairs aimed.
Alright, yeah, I also came up with a dance for my song.
That's game over.
Yeah.
That's game over. Tryna scope me now. That's game over. Tryna swerve on me now. That's game over. Over for you. Tryna come on me now. That's game over. Tryna scope me now. That's game over. Tryna swerve on me now. That's game over. Over for you. Tryna come on me.
Oh man. My friend and I explored the different parts of the Brickell area while we were in Miami. In downtown Brickell. Nice getting some sun. Ooh, got to see the crypto ball, which we randomly stumbled upon when we were just walking around, which was nice. And I was able to meet the Fresh and Fit guys at their meetup. Got Fit, Myron, Fresh Prince CEO. Got Chris or Aaron, who knows? Big Mo, Donovan Sharp, Nico. And and I performed my song at their meet and greet a little bit. But yeah, and just as I planned, I had my speaker and my mic performing Game Over in Miami while I give out merch.
Tryna combo me, nah, that's game over. Tryna scope me, nah, that's game over. Tryna swerve on me, nah, that's game over. Over for you, oh, ooh. Tryna combo me, nah, that's game over. Nah, that's game over. Tryna swerve on me, giving out free t-shirts. Giving out free t-shirts. T-shirts. Like a breath of fresh air ventilation, this sensation got me reaching final form. That'll be fatality for you. Oh, ooh, got my cross here. Tryna scope me. That's game over. Giving out free t-shirts. That's game over for you. My engine is wrecked. Trevor going insane. Don't wanna end up broken, better stay in your lane. Know that you and I got a free t-shirts.
Man, I didn't know it was gonna be difficult giving out free t-shirts, but man, people did not want free t-shirts.
Free t-shirts, free t-shirts, free t-shirts, t-shirts, free t-shirts. Over for you, t-shirt for your dog.
Alright. This was my first time in Miami, and it was fun exploring the area, biking to Miami Beach, and being able to successfully pull off what I intended to for my song Game Over. The weather was a bit on the chiller side, but was still bearable enough for a lot of people to be out and about, which is one of the main components of my decision to move my headquarters of operations to Miami. I couldn't do this in Chicago during this time with it being winter, cold and snow blasting in your face. And I'd rather not having something as trivial as the weather to deter any of my creative plans that I have for the future. And thus my Miami trip came to a close, and I've returned to Chicago. And since then, I've been getting ready to move into the next phase of my business, but first had to make sure all the particulars and details of this update were in order. Back in 2013, when I was a sophomore in college studying electrical engineering and perplexed why the educational path I was programmed to be in felt so scammy when all I wanted to do was to make music, then for me to soon realize that although music is a huge passion of mine, I still very much have other grandiose creative aspirations outside of music. And even though I thought music would be the catalyst launching me towards those other creative endeavors I would like to pursue, back in 2019, I decided to put my pursuit of music on ice in all capacities to play video games until I figured out how I would become unleashed. And since 2019, I've been educating myself on the backbone of building a brand by becoming a gaming streamer and content creator. Worked on constructing the base layer of my creative infrastructure, continued my deprogramming, and back in 2013, when I was a sophomore in college and thought to myself that even though the path wasn't clear, plus it felt like I would have no support, there is no way I would give into the programming and not go down this creative route, when being a creative is the essence of my being. And now, as I record this in January of 2023, I didn't think it would take 10 years, but the mission still continues. I am ready now to become unleashed. I've been holding to some songs I've made going all the way back to senior year of high school that I still need to record. I made these songs independent of one another, but since they all thematically work together, I originally wanted to compile them into one project. They will that will take too long though, so I decided to start the recording process as soon as I can and just start dropping them a few songs at a time. I still need to do a bit of pre-production work before I start the recording process, so when I'll be able to start recording these songs is still tentative. Ideally, I would like to start the recording process hopefully before the end of spring, but anything can happen until then. Either way, I will soon bear the fruits of my labor by not taking the path of least resistance. So, yeah, soon will be unleashed. You got Here I Am, Blast Over My Sound, What I Do, I Got This, Let Me Be Me, Unknown Future, Hands in the Air, You Don't Want None of This, Alive, Coming Up, Level Up, You Feel It, You Need It, Let Me Tell You Something, Unleashed, and Battery. So yeah, and if you would like to support me along this journey, you can do so by copying some of my NFTs. Again, drawings I've held onto since elementary school and throughout middle school. You can also support me by copying some merch. Again, you can get your boost gear. Got Okachobi t-shirt, Okachobi hoodie, NFT swaggin', Game Over, Golden Dragon Blade Katana, Power Levels Rising, Meditation. But yeah, I'll be moving forward with marketing my brand in a big way by finding various ways to promote my song Game Over, reaching out to other content creators to establish a network, finally start to experiment running ads to promote my merch, even handing out my business cards to passengers while Uber driving, also just random people, because why not? Shh. Got my business cards here, my QR code. Woo! Come on now. Come on now. Got the logo on the back. You already know. Well, yeah, that will conclude this update, and I'll see y'all on the other side. Gah! Let's boost!